Welcome to the Life Illuminated podcast. I'm Maggie Kelly. I'm your host. And today we have the honor and the pleasure of welcoming Alison Bladh to the show. Alison is a nutritional therapist specializing in providing nutritional therapy to women in menopause. She's also very helpful in helping us balance our stress hormones, contend with gut health issues, and work a little bit with lifestyle changes. So welcome, Alison, to the show.
Oh, thank you, Maggie. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. Thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you got into this field.
Yeah, my journey really started when I was a teenager. I developed acne, the teenage acne, which really, it's a difficult enough time, isn't it, when you're a teenager, but then having skin issues. And it really kind of sent me down this route of wanting to know what was going on with my hormones, even at that young age, because I didn't want to be taking medication the whole time. So I started looking into, like, was it something, would nutrition help? Would lifestyle management help? And, I really made an effort to improve my nutrition, my lifestyle habits, and I really saw a difference in my skin. And that kind of led me into that interest of hormones and skincare. And I actually started my career as an esthetician, so as a beauty therapist, specifically working with women that had hormonal skin problems, because perimenopause and menopause, the skin can change considerably. So I really focused on that hormonal area for women's skincare. Soon came to realize that you obviously can get good results with aesthetic treatments, but you need that nutritional piece as well. You need it to come from the inside. And that's when I went back and studied nutritional therapy, nutritional science at university, and really specialized in menopausal women's health, the whole health, not just the outside, the inside piece as well, because it can be a really tough time for women. And I know that when I was growing up, the women, my mother, and the women in my family network, they really suffered through menopause. And it was a subject that was never spoken about. It was kind of, oh no, if you're having a hot flash or you're feeling terrible or tired or whatever due to menopause, it was never spoken about. It was all very much a taboo, that isn't something you talk about. And I've made it my mission to talk about it, because there's so many women out there that are really suffering unnecessarily, because there's so many things that you can do, to support yourself during this time.
Well, what can you tell our listeners about nutritional health during menopause? And I'd like to also get into gut health and lifestyle issues as we continue to talk. But just from the nutritional aspect of menopause and hormonal aspect, what would you recommend, or what do you see mostly?
I work with a very wide range of different clients, but normally by the time the client comes to see me, they're exhausted, they're overwhelmed, they're feeling terrible. And if we look, there's a lot of pieces really that you need to put in place to really make yourself start feeling better. But if you look at nutrition is key. I mean, nutrition is key for everybody. But when we focus on menopause, if we think what is actually happening, the decline in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone has a profound effect on the body in many, many ways. And, estrogen is needed for it's a master hormone. It absolutely isn't just a sex hormone. It's needed for virtually every bodily system, bone health, heart health, brain health, overall health. So when the levels start to decline, what you have to do with nutrition is it's really, you just have to look after yourselves better. And you can't get away with what you ate when you were younger. And there's many, I mean, it's a very big subject, nutrition and menopause. But if we look at one area in particular, which is blood sugar management, our bodies, when we have a decline in estrogen, we don't our metabolic health can deteriorate. So when we eat carbohydrates, especially refined carbohydrates like white bread, you know, muffins, cakes, all those really sugary refined foods, that will shoot your blood sugar level up. And what your body does in response to that, it produces a hormone called insulin. And insulin is really, I like to liken it to the key. It kind of opens up the cell and allows the body to utilize that energy. In menopause, we can find that that key doesn't kind of work as it should or it used to. And you can develop something called insulin resistance. And this is really where your body can't take that energy into the cells like it used to be able to. So that means you've got higher blood sugar levels, and that it just leads to a cascade of negative effects on the body, weight gain, you know, irritability, and then if you leave that, it can lead to diabetes too. So it's really important to manage your blood sugar. And how do you do that? It's really one key thing, and I know I really appreciate that this is not easy in the food environment that we live in the moment, is to remove all the really ultra processed refined foods. You know, choose not to eat those foods. You know, if you pick up something in the grocery store that has a list of ingredients on it and you don't know what they are, then really you shouldn't be eating that. You want to be eating nourishing foods that balance the body, balance the hormones, really like whole foods. Things like the Mediterranean style diet always comes up top in research for being very beneficial for menopausal women and people in general. And this is, you know, you eat fish, they predominantly eat fish and seafood, vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, your healthy fats, so like avocado, olive oil, nuts and seeds, coconut oil, and a small amount of red meat and very little amounts of sugar, lots of whole grains and lots of fiber. And that is a very healthy way to eat. And most people think, oh no, well, a Mediterranean diet, that sounds really complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, I work with women all the time that are super stressed and they don't have an extra minute in their day. It's just about planning what you buy and what you have in the fridge. So a Mediterranean style diet, the reason that you want to remove all these refined foods is because, again, it's shown in research that they trigger off or can trigger off menopausal symptoms like hot flashes, irritability, weight gain. You know, the list goes on, and they're not good for overall health. They cause inflammation in the body. They shoot blood sugar up. So if you can, I appreciate it's difficult to avoid them because they're everywhere, but if you can just reduce those sort of foods and choose to nourish your body with nourishing whole foods. And then you want to look at bone health. You know, you want to be making sure that you're eating enough calcium-rich foods. Vitamin D is crucial for many things, but also bone health. As women come into menopause, we have a higher risk of osteoporosis due to the decline in estrogen. We need that for bone strength. So it's really, you know, in heart health, again, estrogen is needed for our circulatory system. So it's important that we're getting all the lovely healthy fats and getting rid of the trans fats and the refined processed foods. And a key thing as well is protein. As women, we don't eat enough protein. And as we get older, we lose muscle mass. So we really need to keep our protein intake roughly around a palm size of protein with every meal. And when we think of protein, you know, we think of chicken, you know, other sorts of meat, fish. If you don't eat animal products, then soya, beans, you know, nuts and seeds. Protein is key, and we really don't eat enough of it in general, because that really, it's like the building blocks of the body. It keeps the body healthy. And another thing for women, especially in perimenopause, when this is the stage before menopause where your hormones can become very unbalanced. Your estrogen levels can be very high, your progesterone can be low. It's a bit like a roller coaster ride. And what we need to do is we need to make sure we're eating enough fiber and cruciferous vegetables, because this helps us to eliminate or detoxify the used estrogens in our body. Otherwise, your body can reabsorb them, and they're not so beneficial because they can cause inflammation, irritation in the body. So we really want to make sure we're getting rid of the used estrogens, and cruciferous vegetables are brilliant for that. Like cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. They really should be absolutely in every woman's diet for hormonal health. And water, of course. There's so many things, so many things to talk about in nutrition. Make sure you drink enough water.
Have you heard of the blue zone diets?
Yes, yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? The blue zones, yeah.
And for those of you listening, the blue zones were identified. There are 5 in the world, and they were identified by a National Geographic photographer who was out on assignment and realizing that in these particular areas of the world, people were living, there were more 100-year-old people and others living into old age. And he wanted to understand why. And so he set out to understand and interview and spend time with people in these 5 particular regions of the world. One being one of my favorite places in the world, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. Their diet is the most beautiful, healthy diet I've ever experienced. All fruit, all vegetables, every single day. 1 time a week of fish, 1 time a week of meat. And not just the diet itself, but the people themselves, the happiness quotient, really, with everyone I met, the beauty, the acceptance, the love, the compassion, the family aspect. So I noticed too, of course, we can't talk about nutrition unless we also talk about the broader holistic sense of our lifestyle and how that is incorporated. You mentioned one of your clients being so stressful she doesn't have a second in her day. I imagine a lot of our listeners are in the car listening to this podcast on their way to some other thing, whether it's work or something involving all their children or what have you. But I think lifestyle is definitely an important piece. Do you want to speak to that a little bit also, Alison?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Maggie. It's a huge piece, lifestyle. You can't, when we're looking at menopause, there's lots of different, like, it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together, and you've got the nutrition part, you've got the lifestyle, and mindset comes in. That's a big piece of it as well. When it comes to lifestyle, it seems to be that everybody is chronically stressed at the moment, and stress is so detrimental for health due to many reasons, but the release of stress hormones constantly when we're chronically stressed has a detrimental effect on the body. And when you come into menopause and you're maybe dealing with all these symptoms, and then you're leading a very stressful life, it just makes you feel terrible. And what I say to my clients is, you have to make time for yourself. It's like non-negotiable. You have to think of your self-worth, and I am worth taking that time out, even if it's just 10 minutes a day.
Well, this is why I teach meditation, right? So 10 minutes a day, if we have 10 minutes a day to go online and buy something from Amazon that we don't need, or to scroll through whatever it is we're scrolling through on our phones, we could instead be spending those 10 minutes a day in stillness. And it will make the entire difference in your life. Just those 10 minutes on a routine, regular basis. So yeah,
exactly.
You're definitely preaching to the choir over here. My life is devoted to trying to train people to give themselves 10 minutes a day of stillness.
Yeah. And I mean, if you don't, then you will have, if you're leading this very, very stressful life, especially when you come into menopause. There will come a time where you just have to, because you'll be feeling so terrible that you'll be forced to, in a way, to step back and think, I can't go on. I'm going to have to take time out to look after myself. And, I totally agree that you need to find something. I understand that we haven't got enough time, but some of my clients, I've actually, we've discussed it, and they schedule it in their schedule every day, 15 minutes, however long that they've got, and it's in there. So then it tends to work, actually, for very busy people. If it's written in their schedule, they will actually do it. And meditation, yoga.
And I want to throw in a thing that I do personally. I have a timer on my phone that at 8 a.m., at noon, and at 8 p.m. dings to remind me to stop everything I'm doing and take a deep breath. That's it. 3 times a day, stop everything you're doing and just be. And I find that, it does bring me back to the present moment. It brings me back to myself. It also helps regulate my breathing and settle down my nervous system just a smidge. So that's also something that we could do. Any one of us could do that. That's a very Buddhist tradition, typically, especially in the Thich Nhat Hanh lineage of Buddhism, where if you're on the property of one of his monasteries, he's no longer alive. He died in March of 2022. But even to this day, at his monasteries, throughout the day, somebody rings a bell. And no matter where you are to stop and take a deep breath. Just remind yourself to be present. So I love that. I absolutely love that for myself, because there are days where, admittedly, I ignore it because I'm busy. And that's the exact opposite of the purpose of doing it. So I have to remind myself, even as a 15-year meditation veteran, I have to remind myself to just stop and become present. So I love that too.
It's so easy as well, isn't it, Maggie? It's just so easy. It doesn't take any time. And that, I'm a huge fan of breathing techniques and breathing, because it just resets your nervous system, doesn't it? It's virtually impossible to feel stressed and anxious if you're breathing deeply, because it tells your body everything's okay, we're all calm, everything's fine. So breathing is wonderful.
Well, and the other piece about breath work, just as an aside, if you're somebody who's very, very stressed and you stop and take a deep breath and focus on that breath, focus on the inhale all the way to the top, pause at the top for one moment, exhale all the air out of your lungs to the very bottom, pause at the bottom. If you're doing that, there's no possible way that you can be thinking at the same time.
Yeah, it's true. It makes me, but it's so funny. I think when we talk about breath work, I always find myself taking a deep breath. It kind of makes you want to start being aware of your breath, doesn't it? I really.
It's true. I wanted to ask you a little bit. I know we're going from breath work back a little bit to hormones, but I wanted to ask a little bit about your thinking about hormone replacement therapy and what you think is the best route for women in perimenopause or menopause.
Yeah, hormone replacement therapy is. I live in Europe, and it's actually, there's a bit of a menopause revolution going on here at the moment. Women have really decided that they want this, rightly so, want the support, and they want the information, because, as we were saying earlier, menopause has always been a bit of a taboo subject. So hormone replacement therapy has really come out, and people are really starting to talk about it, because it is quite, I don't know what it's like in the US, but it's quite a controversial subject.
Yes,
yeah.
Yeah.
My views on it, and everything that I say is evidence-based. I work with the functional medicine model. I don't do anything with clients or anything that isn't proven in research. And when we look at the research on hormone replacement therapy, what is happening. One thing that I will say is that we need more research desperately on hormone replacement therapy. But what we know now, is that it can be very beneficial. So what I say to clients is, get the knowledge, get everything out there that is available for you. Talk to your healthcare provider, find out if you can take HRT, hormone replacement therapy, if that maybe is an option that you want. It's totally individual. And then look at all the other pieces that are available to you. But, the research says that hormone replacement therapy can be very beneficial for helping to relieve certain symptoms. And that it's advanced so much. So there was a study called the Women's Health Initiative that came out it was in the beginning of the end of I think it was like 1999, 2000. And, long story short, it basically was, when it came out in the newspapers before the scientists actually had time to really write what their views on it were. And it was seen, or was given, a bad rap. They were talking about breast cancer and other issues that could be involved with that. So women, rightly so, virtually all women stopped taking it. But that hormone replacement therapy was produced from the urine of mares, so female horses. And it was a tablet that you took. Whereas, if we fast forward to today, the hormone replacement therapy is made from yams. So it's identical. It's identical to our own hormone, and it comes from a yam. It comes from a natural product. So it's very, very difficult to compare, from horses' urine to what we're actually using now, and patches as well, and gels. So you don't actually have to take it as a tablet. So I am pro hormone replacement therapy, but it's very individual. It doesn't work for everyone.
Well, I am a living example of hormone replacement therapy, and I have been on hormone replacement therapy for 12 to 15 years. And I just turned 60, and I can tell you, I don't look 60. I don't feel.
You look amazing.
Yeah, I don't feel 60. I have girlfriends who tell me they have absolutely no sex drive in their late 50s, that their vaginal secretions have dried up, that they don't want to have sex, that it's painful when they do. Their skin has changed, all kinds of different things. Now, I can't say what's going on for someone else. All I can say is that for me, I'm going to continue doing it. And my gynecologist at the time, it's interesting that you mentioned that study, was talking about a study and the need for more research, as you just mentioned, that the incredible lack of research in this particular domain is inexcusable, really. And he even told me at the time that he prescribed it for me, that he had a patient who was in her late 80s on hormone replacement therapy and still having sex with men and her boyfriends and all that other things. And she's like, I'm just going to live it up. And you know what? I feel the exact same way. I don't want to age in a different kind of way. I can't say that 100% it is the HRT that has me feel and look the way I do, but I honestly do believe there's a huge component to that for me.
Yeah, it's totally true. I mean, it's so individual, and there are a lot of people out there that can't take HRT for medical reasons or whatever. But if it works for you, then fantastic, because it's also, I mean, we do, as we've already said, we need more research. We need more research on women, full stop, not just during menopause. But it's, we have to think of our long-term health, as we were saying, bone health, heart health. Estrogen and progesterone is needed for so many bodily systems. So when this declines, your body still produces a very small amount from your adrenal glands. So all you're doing with hormone replacement therapy is just kind of topping it up to the normal levels that you would have. So it's one of the pieces in the puzzle, nutrition, maybe hormone replacement therapy, lifestyle, mindset, that it's all those things. You can't just do one of them. I mean, you seem like an extremely positive person, Maggie. So it's probably, the hormone replacement therapy, your attitude to life, your lifestyle, it's all fits together, doesn't it, to make you feel so fabulous at 6.
Absolutely. I meditate twice a day, every day. I practice yoga. I do strength training. I am vegan. I have lots of friendships. I have lots of community. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. Um, I'm really conscientious of how I feel physically. And I know that over the years, things that I have taken out of my life and my diet have improved how I feel. So I continue to do that. Recently, though, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit because you mentioned that, or I know that you also are specialize in gut health, but I recently, I have to say, the last 8 to 10 years have felt just digestively off. And over those years, I slowly, gradually started eliminating things from my diet in an effort to quote unquote feel better. And so that included gluten. It included, what else? Mostly gluten, no red meat. I haven't eaten red meat in decades. But I then took out fish and eggs and dairy and sugar. And I just kept taking things out until last fall. I just like, you know what? Something's going on, and I need to really pay attention to whatever this is. And I honestly physically thought maybe I had some sort of colon cancer or stomach cancer or something, because everything I ate made me feel terrible. And even my children said, "Mom, you can't eat anything without feeling horrible." And it sort of dawned on me, this has been going on for a lot longer than I remember. And thankfully, I happen to have a naturopathic doctor. And she said, "I want to test you for SIBO." And for those of us in the audience here, SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, typically caused by too much sugar or too many foods that convert to sugar. And so she tested me for SIBO, and she said, most people don't come to me. Most physicians, regular MDs, at least in the United States, would never even dream of testing you for this. And if you came to them with the complaints you're complaining of, might throw some medicines at it that you might end up being on for a lifetime and may not even make a difference whatsoever in what was going on for you. So first, I was very thankful to have a naturopathic doctor tell me that she wanted to at least try this. And if it came out negative, great. But it came out that my numbers were off the charts, just off the charts. So when someone has SIBO, they produce too much of two different kinds of gases. And mine particularly happened to be too much methane. And she said I ended up with a nutritionist. For 60 days, I went on an incredibly restrictive, difficult diet for the first 40, on top of some very heavy antibiotics at the very beginning, which I never want to take, but I did for this. And then after that 40 days, slowly start to reintroduce other kinds of food. And I will tell you that after that, I have never felt better in my entire life. And I bring this up to those who are listening, because if you are suffering from some kind of a digestive issue that you can't put your finger on, and your regular MD is not really helping you, I might recommend that you have some sort of testing or see a nutritionist for sure to see if you can sort of untangle the questions and find the answer.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting story. And I see that so many times with clients that your gut health is key to everything. I mean, the gut, if your gut, your digestive system isn't working how it should, it affects everything. I mean, the brain, there's so much research on how the gut health affects the brain and vice versa. And the gut is really important that is working. It's so interesting. You said once they found that, and you did to get rid of the SIBO, you felt fantastic. And what I predominantly see in menopausal women is because of estrogen. Estrogen is needed for the integrity of the gut, and we can find that it's shown that in an increase in irritable bowel syndrome. It's needed for the integrity of the microbiome,
Can I interrupt you 1 second? For those of you listening in the United States, when Alison says estrogen, she's talking about estrogen. Just so throughout this entire conversation, when you've heard that word, she's talking about the hormone estrogen. Just to be very, very clear.
No, that's good. You said that. It's my British, my British English. Yeah, so you need that for the microbiome, and the microbiome basically is our gut bacteria. And the gut bacteria, there's so much research done on that now, so it's fantastic. We're really starting to understand how important that is, and that can cause many different, if it's unbalanced, which is called dysbiosis. I mean, you had SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So that's obviously in the small intestines. Predominantly in the large intestines, that's where we see dysbiosis. And this basically means that the bad bugs have taken over, that there's always a balance between them, but we really want the healthy bugs to be predominant, because they help us absorb vitamins. They're very beneficial for the gut health. So I see that in a lot of menopausal ladies, that they have dysbiosis. I'm very keen on doing testing as well, so we can really see what's going on. Stool testing you can do, where you can really see, what is actually, they're fantastic, the amount of information that you get from a stool test. Things like parasites as well, people have that they've maybe had for years and years. So it's really getting down and finding out what is going on there. But fermented foods, things like sauerkraut, kimchi, camphor, all of those foods that
kombucha, ladies, those of you who are addicted to kombucha, she's talking to you.
kombucha, yeah, lovely. All of those are so good for our gut. Because they contain probiotics, which is a word for gut bacteria, and fiber. Our gut bacteria loves to eat fiber, so we need to feed it. It's a bit like looking after a garden. You have to keep those gut bugs happy. And if you have a diet very high in sugar and refined processed foods, that tends to nurture the bad bugs. And they can overtake the good ones. So we really want to get rid of that.
Well, and I think it's really, really important, if you don't mind, to talk about a little bit about those foods that convert to sugar, because I didn't know that a lot of what I was eating was making it worse. Even though I was eating this great diet, my favorite foods were broccoli and, things like that. But broccoli is one of the first things on the list I couldn't eat during that diet, because it converts to sugar and was making the symptoms worse without my knowledge. So if you don't mind just touching on a couple of the common foods we eat out there that convert to sugar without our knowledge, like all the grains she told me I couldn't eat for 60 days or something.
Yeah, it's there's a diet that there's a FODMAP diet, which is It's used for people that have, it can be used for people that have IBS. But I mean, if you're going on one of these sort of restrictive diets, you really need to work with a nutritional therapist. You can't do this on your own, because it's very important to get the support, because you don't want to be taking food groups away from your diet because you might lack vitamins and minerals. But some of the foods, you know, exactly as you said, Maggie, you know, carbohydrate basically, you know, comes, and I'm not saying that you should absolutely in any form stop eating vegetables, because they're fantastic for us, but when we look at things, a carbohydrate is what converts into glucose. That's what gives us energy in the body. When we're looking at processed refined foods, so the packaged foods with many different ingredients, they go into the system and your body absorbs them very, very quickly, because they basically have no fiber. And this shoots your blood sugar up and helps to feed, you know, your bad bugs love these sugars. If you're looking at vegetables, even though it is a carbohydrate, it has much more fiber in, so your body can't digest it as much. But when we're looking at what in answer to your question, you know, things like fruit, you know, people eat fruit, and fruit is great. There's nothing wrong with fruit in moderation, but it does contain fructose, and fructose, if you've got a unbalance of gut bacteria, you know, you maybe want to eliminate that for a while. There's certain fruits that contain more sugar, you know, things like grapes and melon, fruits that tend to be on the slightly
Banana.
lower side.
I had to boil my banana to get the sugar out before I could put it in my smoothie. So at least I could get the fiber from the banana, but not the sugar.
Yeah.
So I did
Yeah.
that for a while. I'm glad I don't boil my bananas anymore.
That sounds very extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, things like there's so many things that contain sugars, but there's a difference between added sugar and, you know, the sugar that is naturally, you know, in a fruit. It's like it's a package. If we look at an apple, you know, it's great, it's got vitamins in there, it's got the fiber, you know, it's encased in this wonderful package of nutrients that your body digests and takes out, and it's got all the fiber and everything there. Whereas when you eat something or drink, you know, we shouldn't forget drinking, fizzy drinks are terrible for gut health and overall health. You know, refined foods go directly into the system and shoot your blood sugar up and cause inflammation, irritation. Bad bugs in the gut just thrive off those sort of sugars.
So one of the things they were doing with me is first to, you know, the whole elimination and then the antibiotics to kill off the overgrowth, and then slowly reintroduce the things that I loved. Because as I said, my diet was really, really healthy. I never ate processed anything, never crackers, no cookies, no ice cream, none of that. It just, I haven't eaten bread or gluten in years. And I don't even like rice. But the last thing to reintroduce was my favorite, which was quinoa, which I love. I love making those bowls with all the great stuff in there, avocados and tomatoes and carrots and, you know, sprouts and everything else. And so I remember that day, like, get to have my favorite thing again. But I bring it up only for our audience because of what my naturopathic doctor, as well as the nutritionist, said to me, is that most people do not realize that there is a healthy, organic way to get yourself out of that kind of discomfort if you suffer digestively in this manner without going on a particular medication for the rest of your life. And I am living proof that that is possible. I'm not going to say it was easy, because it wasn't. It was definitely a commitment, but boy, oh boy, I was committed to feeling better, and I feel better than I ever have in my life. So I'm a testament to that. I wanted to ask about if you have any comments about the hormone DHEA.
Mm? Yeah, I mean it's I don't know what it's like in the US, but it's quite controversial as far as like supplementation goes. And this is a process that the body, DHEA is important for our hormonal health. It's not so much something that I see in clients but you could test for that. You can really see if the client needs maybe supplementation. It can be used for women as an alternative to hormone replacement therapy, because it's more of it enables the body to convert. When we think of the hormones in the body, the predominant hormone is testosterone, and your body actually converts testosterone into estrogen. And what DHEA helps, it can help this conversion. So it can be quite beneficial, and it's necessary, but it's also a good alternative to hormone replacement therapy for women that actually can't take estrogen.
My understanding too is it's sort of called the anti-aging hormone. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a bit controversial, really. I think it lacks enough research I wouldn't feel happy calling it that. Not with the research behind it. And it used to be in Europe, it used to be able to buy it in supplementation form. But I've seen that isn't actually available now. They've stopped allowing people just to be able to buy it like that. But in answer to that, I don't. Maybe it does have an anti-aging effect, but it's nothing that I've really seen or would recommend to clients.
Okay. Now, okay, so anything else you want to share with our audience that I may not have covered in this whole domain that you're such a wonderful expert in?
Yeah, I mean, we've covered so many different things, but I think I would just like to finally say to women out there that, you just remember that menopause it's a totally natural process, but suffering isn't. And it's actually okay to ask for help, because it can be quite difficult to maneuver and find, the information that you need to feel better in this time. So, reach out and ask for help and get the support that you need, because this phase in your life, it's like a new beginning. It should be fantastic. We're wiser as we age as women. We're fabulous. We have so much knowledge, don't we? And it should be a time to thrive and enjoy. So just don't suffer in silence. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And so with that note, where can people find you, Alison?
I think the best place to find me really is on my website, which is alisonbladh.com. That's BLADH. On there, all the links to my social media. I'm on virtually all social media platforms. And I also have a resources page on my website with lots of free downloads and ebooks and, nutritional ideas and recipes and meal plans for all different, if you're suffering from bloating or you want to improve your skin, etc. So if any of your listeners want to download that, please feel free.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been very, very informative, not just for me, but obviously for anyone listening. It's fabulous.
Oh, thank you. So it's a pleasure. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Likewise, and I hope that we reconnect at some point in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, and until then, here's to living a life illuminated.